Before I begin this video, I want to thank Andy for making my new profile picture. I quite like this one and it will be my new one from now on. Shout out to him. Also, I made a Discord server. Yeah, the link is in the description. I'll be pretty active there, and so you can chat to me if you want and get early previews. Anyways, I would appreciate it a lot if you join. Also, thanks for 1k subs, that's insane. Anyways, on with the video. Creating in Geometry Dash has evolved in many different ways, from the gameplay aspect to design choices and much more. It is really quite interesting to see the process of improving and creating, and it is always exciting to see what creators have for us to offer. However, how did this evolve, and in which styles did we see change and maybe even lost? Did some creators revolutionize creating, or did it all stay in a certain path as updates went on? So today I have tried my best to answer all of that. How did creating evolve through GD, from the very start of the game with barely any levels to play, to today's millions that the community has to offer, with everyone having their own charm? I hope you find this interesting, as it's a bit longer than my usual videos, but let's begin. The game started creating with 1.0, however there wasn't much to do with it. You had all the basic blocks you could use, which most of them are used for layouts nowadays, and some extra blocks placed there and there to make it a bit more interesting. However, I decided to look a bit more into it and looking at some 1.0 levels. I actually was pretty surprised with the gameplay they used then. A lot of it was actually consisted of memory, and it was interesting as a lot of people say that came mostly in 1.9 and 1.6, however nearly all of them had fake jumps and secret ways. I know it isn't hardcore memory, but it's still enough to be considered memory. I also saw that most of the levels didn't actually even have sync. A lot of them were made with effort back in the day, for example many of Darnock's levels, but they weren't actually synced at all, which I find weird as I thought sync was something always creators had in mind, but I guess not. Lastly, I saw quite a few tricky timings in a lot of the levels, which for me they were what made the levels difficult in the first place. Well, to their standards of course. Anyways, that is what 1.0 had to offer. Nothing much really evolved then, everything just really stayed static for a month or so until 1.1 came out, and then things started to pick up a bit. One 1.1 was a pretty big update to say the least. Apart from time rushing and allowing players to comment on online levels, it also had some updates to the editor. This was the infamous mirror portal, which was often abused as it was really fun and satisfying to watch. However, apart from only abusing it, it did make a lot of people start using it to make levels a lot more dynamic and interesting, as it totally flipped the camera, which looks really cool, and it didn't make for a cool effect. But it did make levels a lot more confusing and added difficult to them, as it takes a while for the animation to finish, which led to a lot of people starting hating its use. However, apart from that, people started using a lot more design aspects to levels to make them more interesting, with many people starting to use the glow spikes that existed to decorate the ground spikes, as well as using these chains things to make the block feel like it's hanging from the ceiling. This made a lot of levels livelier, and it included a bit of an artistic aspect to the game. Not only that, a lot of people thought outside the box and started using these objects as air deco, with their rotations triggers as well as just placing them in the air. The problem was that the bad outweighed the good, and not many people were actually focusing on design. It was slowly increasing, but in my opinion, 1.2 to 1.3 would be the biggest shift in creating. During 1.2, a lot of new features came out, notably the ball game mode, the blue orbs and jump pads, as well as many different designs. The ball game mode revolutionized gameplay in GD back in the day, as it was a completely new game mode and it was very interesting and much could be done with it. Many used to use tight timings, which were very precise, but a lot of people also used the normal jump orbs and used them just as they would in a cube. Another big thing that was made with it was one of the most famous techniques. It was consistent of using a blue orb on top of a spike and requiring the player to hit it to avoid the spike in front of it, as well as not falling above into the spikes. A lot of these game mode mechanics people used with the ball can still be seen in main 2.1 levels, and hasn't really left the game, which is pretty nice. However, the ball game mode wasn't the only gameplay mechanic changed, as I said. Blue orbs and jump pads were introduced, which worked differently from a normal gravity portal, as they changed the gravity almost instantly. This made a lot of creators use them for build-ups in songs such as X-Step, Spam, or even memory sections, which were still used for fakes nowadays. It also brought the mechanic orb masking, which is basically you have to do a certain timing as there are 2 orbs in a certain place. However, this doesn't work nowadays and we haven't seen it in quite a while. All of this really shifted the meta on what would you build on, as old levels back in the day used all 3 game modes to add some variety, and most importantly, a lot of them introduced unique ways you could use the game modes, and new worlds which you could say it's in a whole other category. However, as much as gameplay changed, Deco also started to shift to a much cleaner style. A lot of creators used the objects wisely and spammed them a lot less. This made them a lot more visually appealing. However, a lot of creators try to combine these objects and making their own ones out of the already existed ones. This made for some pretty unique and interesting builds we could see, kind of like Majako, but we'll come across that later. Creating overall started getting better and better, and people were making better and better things. One thing though was that a lot of levels ended up looking very similar to one another, and that started mainly 1.2 and 1.3. However, we did see a spike in difficulty, with Demon Port coming in 1.2 and making the new Demon rating, which would cause a lot of levels at that incredible difficulty at the time to come out, which would define a new era of gameplay as well as difficulty. However, especially in 1.3, the 1.2 feature shined, with many new creators coming into build. With GD getting more popular day by day, many more levels would be built, and more innovative ways would come across, and would change the landscape of GD creating. Levels such as the Nightmare, with its unique spaceship sections and colorful backgrounds, but as well as other levels like X-Step version 2, with its unique gameplay and major improvements to the already existing Rob-Top level, X-Step. This already made people shift from making basic levels with little to no deco, and started making more and more complex things. One person that achieved this and was out of his time was Neptune. Neptune, to say the least, was an amazing creator for his time. All of his levels were unique, and especially with his version 2 series, everyone fell in love with his levels. All of them had good designs, new gameplay aspects, and it certainly was different. However, he only really started kicking off around 1.6, with Deadly Clubstep, and later 1.7 with Necropolis introducing real timing levels. However, with all of this, he managed to slowly evolve his designs with one type of block to multiple, and adding as much variety as possible to make it even more interesting and eye-catching. This really was a breaking point for Geometry Dash creating the 1.6 and 1.8 era. The 1.6 to 1.8 era was probably one of the most important times in Geometry Dash creating. It brought so many new blocks to the game, and most of them could be combined with other ones to invent new and more interesting blocks, which could be used in levels to make them feel livelier. Majako was really the first person to really start putting aesthetic into his levels. Back on Mountain was the first level that felt like something. All the gameplay and design choices and objects, it felt like you were going up a mountain, and everything seemed like quite a mountain back in the day. Of course, the main issue with this was that it was incredibly difficult, and little to no people could beat it legit. Talking about difficulty, 1.6 started to bring insane difficulty jumps into levels, with introducing the new gameplay mechanics which were for incredibly difficulty at the time, such as Straight Fly with the former impossible level Ice Karma Diablo X, as well as a little bit after with 1.7 Necropolis with its insane timings back in the day. All of these new mechanics would fundamentally change the format of Geometry Dash Extreme Demons, and would shift from making something confusing to more skill based and learning based. This did not only change Extreme Demons, but also demons in general. Every demon was formatted similar then. It started with a pretty straightforward section and simple times and fakes, and then it would progress to get harder and harder, with more fakes and things to throw at you while you were playing. Later on, Art was firstly introduced around 1.8, which was Majako. Art back in the day was different to say the least. It used orbs, blocks and spikes to make something unique and it looked like something. Examples of this are in the levels Silent Hills version 2 and Hello Demon, all of which were Majako's levels. Another thing that evolved during 1.8 was design. Core levels by Majako were extraordinary at its time. The mix of blocks in it to make those complex block designs is insane that he thought of this back in the day, and it would be later known to create a brand new style in GD known as Core, which would use complex air deco and block designs and make extremely complex designs, and would slowly start to get more complex as the months passes and how Geometry Dash creating would evolve. The 1.6 era to 1.8 was really one of the best ones, as so much started, but how it would evolve would be greatly seen in the next update, 1.9. 1.9 was considered the golden age for the community to a lot of people. However, apart from it, if it really was or it wasn't, it for sure brought a lot of new features into the game and revolutionized it as a whole. First of all, the new game mode Wave came out, which sparked a completely new type of gameplay to be used. The Wave is such a unique game mode and was infamous for being the hardest game mode at the time, as it was really hard to learn and master. Not only that, but colors would start being used more, and would also be used more thoughtfully rather than having one color you like, and you would start using combinations of them and trying to make them more unique. Other things in 1.9 brought stuff into like being able to save your data, which is extremely useful on other details and objects, as well as higher block limits and everyone's favorite feature, copy-paste. However, in my opinion, the biggest feature added was custom music, which with no doubt changed the whole feeling of levels, and as such every level would feel different. Creators now experimented with game mode types as they fit to the song they chose. Newground artists also started to get more attention due to popular levels having their songs in it, like Dim Rain. Music gave feeling to levels, which implemented themes, with tracks being one of the first to give feelings to his levels. Colors also were implemented in the editor and had 4 new color channels. I know that sounds nothing with our infinite ones nowadays, but back in the day it was huge. Funnygame was there to blow everyone's mind, away with that rainbow effect and the famous black and red ship in his level Revolution. This level would teach everybody the potential of 1.9, and therefore people would start making even crazier levels, with us seeing some of the best levels in 1.9. However, it would be kind of unfair to only mention Funnygame once. He made so many good levels in 1.9, such as Death Moon with its amazing art and La Campanella with its piano style and cool effects. In short words, Funnygame introduced effects in GD. Well, he made them good. A lot of other levels would also have cool effects, such as Illusion with its current electricity part and a bit later on with some flashing lights. It may not seem special nowadays, but this would be essential for effects to move on to something greater. Using the knowledge people had in 1.9 and then using it in 2.1 with more advanced triggers would be crucial. As you can see, I strongly believe that 1.9 brought more things such as effects and better art, rather than better design, as the design was usually these connectors inside of a block and it wasn't all that special. Like, think about it, most of the memorable 1.9 levels either have effects or art in it. Only Supersonic and Ultrasonic were the most memorable levels that weren't only focusing on effects and art things. Anyways, 1.9 really hit hard the community, and so much came out with it. Creators evolved and huge projects came out, which are still remembered by the community to this day. Now we're moving to the modern era of GD, 2.0 and 2.1. 2.0 was huge back then, moving objects, infinite color channels, layers, new objects and details, so much came out with it. Everyone is excited and started building their own levels. However, the problem is a lot of people weren't thinking outside the box of what you could do, and therefore a lot of early 2.0 levels looked really similar with rapid movements and similar designs. This made a bad reputation for the start of 2.0, but as always, creators would make something amazing. Series by Funnygame was the first real boss fight with custom attacks and movements. What people only had made before then was really just the deadlock boss fight, which it really isn't a boss fight, as it has no story and just stays for like 3 seconds on the screen. That really just started boss fights, and you can even say that if it weren't for that, Zender Game wouldn't be even making boss fights now, but hey, I don't exactly know. Moving objects was also a big thing, with making every level feel lively and making it more interesting. This made for a lot of cool effects and levels that consisted of the move trigger. The alpha trigger was also one of those triggers, which when misused it was bad, but when it correctly implemented it was amazing. People made levels a lot more clean, and as well as you guessed it, having really cool effects and made levels more interesting. Galvatron was again one of the best creators at the time, with unique block deco and ideas which were out of its time. However, a bit later on, people started combining these objects like they used in 1.8 and making even cooler block designs and air deco, which was really interesting to watch. Heinz was one of the creators that did that, and lots of cool objects and decorations in the backgrounds were used, and some cool block designs and pulses that caught your eye. However, as 2.0 was there for a long time before 2.1 came, a lot of it evolved. With what you would expect, styles would change and new ones would come, such as modern levels being introduced with Equinox, and effects would evolve with Sir Punch coming into the mix, as well as Triax making amazing art levels and effects. All of these creators slowly made other creators follow their footsteps, and would start improving fast, as the standards for the featured levels would get higher and higher. However, after a bit, not much improvement would be made, as most of the limits, let's say, of 2.0 have been achieved. Everyone, to be honest, was just waiting on 2.1. When 2.1 came out, it was huge. A new update after so long, and it had so much to offer. However, just like at the start of 2.0, it suffered from the same problem. People misused a lot of the stuff. However, this time it was actually the decoration blocks. Lots of people used bad colors that didn't fit well, as well as making the new spider game mode incredibly not fun. This also brought a new trend of the levels, known as the generic levels, which were low quality levels with minimal decoration that were mostly made to get CP, which was the problem in the community for a very long time. This continued for quite a while, and we were seeing the occasional really good level from a creator that actually put effort into his levels. However, as 2.1 progressed on, levels would start improving a lot more, and from 2018 to now, levels from being low effort and generic and not interesting would start becoming a lot better after people started combining objects, decorations, using good glow and colors to make their designs outstanding. Designs levels, as I said, were only really popular in 1.8, with Majaco's core levels. However, they kind of died down over the time. However, with 2.1 bringing so many new details and objects, it was the right time to make some cool block designs with them and place them around the level. Destiny and Rafa are prime examples of how design levels could turn out, and many more. Level making slowly became more complicated, with also adding glow as one of the, let's say, necessary things to add to a level, as it enhanced and made it much more appealing. Effects and triggers usage will also become more advanced. Players could even make their own games, which I still find crazy. Basically, 2.1 brought a lot more than you would think, and as it stayed for so long, creators have improved a lot with it and have made some crazy stuff with the designs they thought of and block designs. There are many 2.1 creators that if you saw them from 1.8, you would think that would be impossible to be made now. Anyways, that is the video. I really hope you learned something from this. It is really crazy from spamming blocks and having the default blocks as decoration, it turns to some crazy colorful designs and amazing decorations. To me, the end of 2.0 and where we are now is the best era for creating, as we have some of the best levels around this time. It's crazy how things came to be here, with all these amazing levels. However, this is it for now. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!